My son told me to stop calling him, so I called the bank and froze his trust fund. I am Bobbie, 56 years old, and I raised my son Tyler alone after my husband James died when our boy was just 8. We were always close until recently. I created a life centered on him, watched him grow, and supported him through every milestone. Then, last week, he told me to stop calling him. So I called our bank and froze the trust fund his father left him. This morning, the loud pounding on my front door told me Tyler had received the news. If you are watching this, please let me know where you are viewing from and hit that like and subscribe button. Every parent faces tough love moments, and I am about to share mine. Connecticut has always been my home. I built my career as a pediatrician here, balancing long hours at the practice with raising Tyler. Before all that, I met James during my second year of medical school. He was brilliant studying finance while I pursued medicine, and we connected immediately over late-night study sessions in the library. After graduation, James went into investment banking and quickly proved himself to have an exceptional mind for the market. We married 2 years later in a small ceremony by the coast. James continued climbing the corporate ladder while I completed my residency. His natural talent for investments meant we were comfortable financially, though we both worked long hours pursuing careers we loved. When I became pregnant with Tyler, James was over the moon. He had always wanted a family, and seeing him hold our son for the first time remains one of my most precious memories. Tyler was an easy baby, curious and happy. Those early years were exhausting but beautiful. James would come home from work and immediately take Tyler from my arms, spending hours just talking to him, reading books, and walking him around our home, pointing out colors and shapes. Even as James advanced at his firm, becoming one of their top portfolio managers, he always made time for our son. Then came that terrible February morning when Tyler was 8. James had gone for his regular morning run. When he didn't return after an hour, I grew concerned. The police officer at our door delivered the news that shattered our world. James had suffered a massive heart attack during his run. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. The weeks that followed passed in a blur of funeral arrangements, consoling Tyler and trying to make sense of our new reality. James, ever the planner, had prepared for every contingency. His will was meticulously organized, including a substantial trust fund for Tyler's future. The trust had specific conditions based on James's belief that wealth should be paired with responsibility. Tyler would receive portions at different ages, with the full amount available at 30, provided he demonstrated financial responsibility. Suddenly, I was both mother and father to our grieving son. I took a month off from my practice to help Tyler adjust, but eventually we both needed to find our new normal. I arranged my schedule to be home when Tyler finished school, turning down a partnership opportunity that would have required more hours. Our dining table became homework central every evening, and weekends were filled with soccer games, swim meets, and the activities that kept Tyler engaged. Throughout it all, I worked hard to keep James's memory alive. We celebrated his birthday each year with Tyler's favorite meal, which had also been James's favorite. I shared stories about his father's kindness, his intelligence, and his integrity. I wanted Tyler to know the man who had loved him so completely, even if he couldn't be with us. During Tyler's teenage years, I noticed subtle changes. While he remained a good student, there were moments when his sense of entitlement showed. When he turned 16, he expected an expensive car rather than the sensible used sedan I purchased. His disappointment was obvious, though he tried to hide it. I explained that while we were financially secure, I wanted him to understand the value of money and work. James would have wanted the same. Despite my busy schedule at the pediatric clinic, I made time for family dinners and weekend activities. I attended every school event and parent-teacher conference, determined that Tyler would never feel the absence of either parent in his important moments. When college applications began, I helped him research schools but insisted he write his own essays and manage the process. His acceptance to Princeton made me burst with pride. It had been James's alma mater, and Tyler had worked hard for his admission. The night we received the acceptance letter, I showed Tyler a letter James had written for him to open when he went to college. Reading his father's words of pride and encouragement brought tears to both our eyes. It seemed like everything was on track for the bright future James and I had dreamed of for our son. But during those 4 years at Princeton, subtle changes in Tyler's behavior became more pronounced. His calls home grew less frequent. When he did call, he spoke more about fraternity parties than classes. His new friends came from wealthy families who seemed to vacation in exotic locations during every break. I noticed Tyler posting photos of expensive restaurants and weekend trips I knew weren't covered by the modest monthly allowance from his trust fund. When he graduated with honors in business, I was relieved and hopeful. Perhaps the phase of excessive spending was just part of the college experience. James would have been so proud to see Tyler accept his diploma following in his father's footsteps. I thought we had weathered the difficult years and our close relationship would resume once Tyler settled into adulthood. That hope carried me through the summer after his graduation. Tyler talked about his plans to move to New York City, his job prospects, and his excitement about starting his career. I helped him apartment hunt, offering advice on budgets and neighborhoods. He listened politely, but I could tell he had his own ideas about where and how he wanted to live. I tried not to hover, remembering how important independence had been for me at his age. Tyler moved to Manhattan that September, accepting an entry-level position at a marketing firm. The starting salary was reasonable for a recent graduate, and I was pleased he had found work in his field so quickly. I helped him move into his small one-bedroom apartment in a walk-up building. It was nothing fancy, but it was clean, safe, and within his budget. He seemed excited about this new chapter, and I felt optimistic. Our weekly Sunday phone calls continued for the first few months. He would tell me about work challenges, office politics, and the adjustment to city life. I cherished these conversations, always careful not to offer too much unsolicited advice. I wanted to be his sounding board, not his supervisor. About 4 months into his new job, the tone of our calls changed. Tyler began complaining about his position, saying he was undervalued and underpaid. He talked about colleagues who lived in better neighborhoods and wore designer clothes. When I suggested patience and pointed out that career advancement takes time, he grew irritated. "Mom, you don't understand how things work now. It's all about appearances and connections. No one takes you seriously if you're living in a dump and wearing off-the-rack suits." I reminded him that his father had started with nothing and built his success through hard work and smart decisions. This comparison only seemed to frustrate him more. Dad's time was different. The economy was better. Opportunities were everywhere. Around this time, Tyler mentioned his new girlfriend, Allison. From his descriptions, she came from a wealthy family and worked in fashion public relations. Their first date had been at an exclusive restaurant I knew was far beyond Tyler's budget. When I gently questioned this, he brushed off my concern. "It was a special occasion, Mom. Besides, networking is part of building a career." As the weeks passed, Tyler's requests for additional money became more frequent. The monthly allowance from his trust fund was generous, designed to supplement his income while encouraging him to live within his means. But now there were always unexpected expenses, a laptop that suddenly died, apartment repairs, networking events he needed to attend. I tried to maintain boundaries while being supportive. "The trust fund has specific terms, Tyler. Your father wanted you to learn financial responsibility before accessing larger amounts." His response was increasingly cold. "Dad's been gone for almost 20 years. Those rules don't make sense in today's world." Our weekly calls became bi-weekly, then monthly. When I invited him home for Thanksgiving, he had an excuse about a work obligation. Christmas brought another last-minute cancellation. Each time, social media posts later revealed he had been at parties or on weekend trips with Allison and their friends. The distance growing between us broke my heart. I sent care packages to his apartment, called regularly, even when he didn't answer, and tried to maintain our connection. But increasingly, I felt like I was chasing a relationship with someone who was pulling away. In March, 6 months after he started his job, Tyler stopped answering my calls entirely. After 2 weeks of silence, I grew concerned enough to call his workplace only to discover he no longer worked there. According to the receptionist, he had resigned almost a month earlier. This news shocked me to my core. Why would he quit without telling me? What was he doing for income? My texts asking about his employment status went unanswered. Worried about his well-being, I decided to make an unannounced visit to New York. The 5-hour drive from Connecticut gave me plenty of time to rehearse what I would say, how I would approach him with concern rather than accusation. When I arrived at his apartment building, the doorman immediately recognized Tyler's name, but informed me he had moved out weeks ago. My stomach dropped. My son had moved without telling me. The doorman, seeing my distress, mentioned that Tyler had moved to a luxury high-rise in Tribeca. He remembered because Tyler had tipped generously during the move. I sat in my car trying to process this information. A luxury apartment in Tribeca. On what income? And why keep all these major life changes secret from me? With a growing sense of dread, I Googled the address the doorman had given me. The building featured apartments starting at $5,000 per month. There was no way Tyler could afford this, even with his trust fund allowance. After gathering my courage, I drove to the new address. The gleaming building had a doorman in a crisp uniform who politely informed me that Mr. Williams was not at home. When I explained I was his mother and had driven from Connecticut, concern softening his professional demeanor, he suggested I might find Tyler at a nearby restaurant where he often had lunch with his girlfriend. The restaurant was exactly the type of establishment Tyler had recently developed a taste for minimalist decor, well-dressed patrons, and menu prices that made my eyes widen. I spotted him immediately at a corner table with a striking blonde woman I assumed was Allison. They were laughing over wine glasses, looking carefree and stylish in a way that seemed at odds with someone who should be worried about unemployment. When I approached their table, Tyler's expression shifted from shock to embarrassment to anger in the span of seconds. "Mom, what are you doing here?" He didn't stand to greet me or offer a hug. "I was worried, Tyler. You haven't returned my calls in weeks. I found out you quit your job, moved apartments. What's going on?" Allison gave me a cool appraisal before extending her hand. "You must be Bobbie. Tyler has told me so much about you." Her tone suggested otherwise. Tyler reluctantly invited me to join them, his discomfort evident. As I sat down, I noticed his new watch, the designer logo on Allison's handbag, the bottle of champagne on the table, all signs of a lifestyle that should have been far beyond my son's means. "I decided corporate life wasn't for me," Tyler explained dismissively. "I am exploring entrepreneurial opportunities now, much better growth potential." When I asked for specifics about these opportunities, his answers were vague. Allison interjected with comments about contacts she was introducing him to, promising connections that would totally change his trajectory. The conversation grew increasingly tense. When I directly asked how he was affording his new apartment and lifestyle, Tyler's face hardened. "Mom, I am 26 years old. I don't need to justify my financial decisions to you." "You do if you're spending through your trust fund at this rate," I countered. "That money was meant to secure your future, not fund a lifestyle you haven't earned." Allison's eyebrows raised at this, and she exchanged a look with Tyler I couldn't interpret. The argument escalated as Tyler accused me of controlling his life and not respecting his choices. When I expressed concern about Allison's apparent influence on his spending habits, both of them reacted with indignation. "You don't know anything about our relationship," Tyler snapped. "Allison supports my ambitions. She believes in me." Allison's smile held no warmth. "Tyler deserves the finer things in life. He's special. Not everyone understands that." The meal ended with Tyler throwing cash on the table and storming out with Allison, leaving me alone in the restaurant, fighting back tears and wondering where I had gone wrong as a parent. The drive back to Connecticut was the longest 5 hours of my life. Every mile marker seemed to taunt me with another memory of the little boy who once couldn't wait to tell me about his day, who held my hand crossing the street, who made me Mother's Day cards with glitter that got everywhere. Where had that child gone? How had he transformed into this angry young man who seemed to resent everything about me? Rain started falling halfway home, matching my mood perfectly. I replayed our confrontation at the restaurant over and over, wondering if I could have handled it differently. Should I have been more understanding, less confrontational, but watching him throw away his future, burning through money his father had worked so hard to provide, felt like watching a slow-motion car crash. Once home, I tried calling Tyler repeatedly over the next few days. My calls went straight to voicemail. My texts received no response. Even emails went unanswered. It was as if he had erected a complete barrier between us. 2 weeks after my disastrous New York visit, I received a call from Sandra, the mother of one of Tyler's college friends. Her cheerful voice caught me off guard. "Bobbie, I just wanted to call and see if you and Tyler will be at the engagement party next month. We are so looking forward to seeing you both." My confusion must have been evident in my response. Sandra hesitated before continuing. Oh, I assumed you knew. Tyler and Allison got engaged last weekend. They announced it at the Palmers' dinner party. The ring is quite something, several carats at least. The news hit me like a physical blow. My son was engaged, and I had learned about it from a casual acquaintance. I hadn't even met this woman properly, and now she would be my daughter-in-law. And an expensive engagement ring. That explained where more of the trust fund money had gone. After ending the call with Sandra, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by framed photos chronicling Tyler's life. His first steps, Little League championship, high school graduation, college move-in day. In each one, his smile radiated joy and our connection was palpable. Now, I couldn't help wondering if those memories meant anything to him anymore. Social media confirmed Sandra's news. Tyler and Allison's engagement announcement had dozens of congratulatory comments from people I had never heard of. The photo showed them posed against a Manhattan skyline, Allison's hand prominently displaying a diamond ring that must have cost a small fortune. The engagement party was scheduled at an upscale venue in 3 weeks. I had not received an invitation. The pain of this deliberate exclusion cut deeper than I could have imagined. I had been written out of one of the most significant moments in my only child's life. Desperate to reestablish contact, I tried a different approach. I sent a simple text. Congratulations on your engagement. I would love to meet Allison properly and celebrate with you both. Please call when you can. 3 days later, my phone finally rang with Tyler's number. My heart raced as I answered. Tyler, thank you for calling back. I've been so worried. His voice was cold, detached. Mom, I saw your text. Allison and I are very busy with wedding plans. Her parents are handling most of the arrangements. I would like to be involved too, Tyler. I am your mother. That's not necessary. The Pattersons have connections with all the best vendors. Besides, the wedding will be in the Hamptons at their summer home. Very exclusive. I tried a different angle. Could we meet for lunch sometime, just the two of us? We haven't really talked in months. I'm swamped right now with the new business venture. Maybe after things settle down. What business venture, Tyler? You've never actually explained what you're doing since quitting your job. His sigh conveyed extreme impatience. It's complicated, Mom. Investment opportunities, tech, startups. You wouldn't understand. Try me. I managed your father's estate and your trust fund for 18 years. I understand finance better than you think. His tone grew sharper. That's different. Dad left everything set up. You just followed instructions. The dismissal of my capabilities stung. After several more minutes of increasingly tense conversation, I made one last attempt to reach him. Tyler, I'm concerned about the rate you're spending money. The trust fund wasn't intended to support a lifestyle beyond your means. It was meant to help you establish yourself, maybe buy a home someday, have security. Here we go again with the lecture, he snapped. I am an adult. The money is legally mine at 25. I don't need your approval on how I spend it. Not all of it is yours yet, I reminded him. The larger portion comes at 30 and only if you've demonstrated financial responsibility. Your father was very clear about that. There was a pause, then words that would echo in my mind for days afterward. Mom, stop calling me. I don't need your advice or your judgment. I have my own life now. The line went dead before I could respond. I sat holding the silent phone tears streaming down my face, the finality of his words sinking in. My son had just cut me out of his life. That night was the longest of my life. Sleep eluded me completely as I alternated between tears and anger. I pulled out old photo albums, scrolled through years of digital pictures on my laptop, and reread birthday cards Tyler had given me over the years. Each memento only deepened the pain of what I had lost. Around 3 a.m, unable to find peace in my bedroom, I went to the study where I kept important family documents. In the back of the fire safe was a sealed envelope James had left for Tyler with instructions that it be given to him when he received his full inheritance at 30. I had respected James's wishes and kept the letter sealed all these years. But now, questioning everything about my parenting and desperate for guidance, I carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written in James's distinctive handwriting, the sight of which brought fresh tears to my eyes. Dear Tyler, it began. If you are reading this, you have reached your 30th birthday and are now receiving the full inheritance I've left for you. I hope this money helps you build a meaningful life, but remember that true wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in how you treat others, especially those who love you unconditionally, like your mother. James went on to explain his philosophy about money being a tool, not an identity. He wrote about the importance of gratitude, hard work, and maintaining perspective. The final paragraph hit me hardest. The greatest gift I could leave you isn't this money. It's the example of your mother's strength and love. If she has given you access to this full inheritance, it means she believes you understand these values. Don't disappoint her faith in you. Honor it by living with the integrity she has shown throughout her life. I sat with the letter in my trembling hands, feeling James's presence more strongly than I had in years. His words clarified something I had been struggling with for months. By enabling Tyler's reckless behavior, I wasn't just allowing him to waste money. I was failing to honor James's wishes for our son's character development. I was betraying the trust he had placed in me as Tyler's remaining parent. Before I could second-guess myself, I called Martha, my oldest friend, who had known both James and Tyler since the beginning. Despite the early hour, she answered on the third ring, instantly alert when she heard my tear-filled voice. "I'll be there in 20 minutes," she said without hesitation. "Put on some coffee." Martha arrived as promised, still in pajamas, under her coat, face free of makeup, but eyes full of concern. We sat at my kitchen table as I poured out everything Tyler's lifestyle changes, the engagement to a woman I barely knew, and finally, his devastating words telling me to stop calling. Martha listened without interruption, her expression growing increasingly troubled. When I finished, she reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Oh, Bobbie, I am so sorry. But I need to be honest with you as someone who loves both you and Tyler. This sounds like a crisis that won't resolve itself. The path he's on leads nowhere good." "What can I do?" "He won't even talk to me." Martha's expression turned thoughtful. "Remember when my daughter went through that phase in college? Dating the drug dealer, dropping out of school." I nodded. Martha's daughter Rachel had gone through a terrible period of rebellion that had nearly destroyed their relationship. I had to make the hardest decision of my life. I cut off her tuition payments. Told her she could come home if she wanted help getting clean and returning to school, but I wouldn't subsidize her self-destruction. "That must have been agonizing," I said softly. "It was. She didn't speak to me for 3 months. But when she hit bottom, guess whose door she showed up at, and today she thanks me for having the courage to set that boundary. Says it saved her life." We talked until sunrise, examining my options, the potential consequences, and what James would have wanted in this situation. By the time Martha left, I had made the most difficult decision of my life. That morning, I reviewed the trust fund documents with fresh eyes. As co-trustee, I had more authority than I had previously exercised. There was a specific clause about fiscally irresponsible behavior that could trigger a freeze on distributions if either trustee determined the beneficiary was misusing funds or making decisions contrary to the trust's intent. Before I could talk myself out of it, I called Alan Peterson, our family attorney who had handled James's estate and the trust establishment. "Bobbie, it's been a while. How are you?" His familiar voice carried the warmth of our 20-year professional relationship. "Not well, Alan. I need to discuss Tyler's trust fund and my options as co-trustee." For the next hour, I detailed my concerns, providing specifics about Tyler's spending patterns, his unemployment, and the engagement to a woman who seemed primarily interested in his financial prospects. Alan listened carefully, occasionally asking for clarification. "The clause about fiscal responsibility gives you significant latitude," he confirmed after consulting the documents. "As co-trustee, you have the right to temporarily freeze distributions if you believe the beneficiary is acting contrary to the trust's purpose. However, I should warn you that this will almost certainly damage your relationship with Tyler, at least initially." "I think that relationship is already damaged beyond recognition," I admitted, my voice breaking slightly. "But I still love him enough to try saving him from himself." After ending the call with Alan, I sat quietly in James's old office chair, surrounded by the books and mementos of our life together. I closed my eyes and tried to imagine what he would say if he were here. The memory of his voice came to me clearly, Sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is set a firm boundary. My resolve strengthened. I placed the most difficult phone call of my life. The trust manager at the bank was professional and non-judgmental as I invoked the fiscal responsibility clause. He explained the process. The account would be frozen immediately with an automatic notification sent to Tyler. No funds would be distributed until specific conditions were met, which I outlined based on Alan's guidance. Mr. Williams will need to provide proof of employment or legitimate business income, I specified. He must also agree to financial counseling sessions and demonstrate a realistic budget plan moving forward. Understood, Dr. Williams. We'll implement these restrictions immediately and send the formal notification. You should know that Mr. Williams will have the right to appeal this decision, though the burden of proof regarding financial responsibility would be on him. The call ended, and I sat in the sudden silence feeling a strange mixture of grief and relief. I had taken action to protect my son from his worst impulses, but at what cost to our already fragile relationship? I didn't have long to wonder. Within 30 minutes of the bank's notification, my phone exploded with texts and calls from Tyler. I let them go to voicemail, needing time to compose myself before the inevitable confrontation. His messages grew increasingly angry. "What the hell, Mom? You froze my account. Call me back immediately. You have no right to do this. This is my money." After the 10th call, I listened to his voicemail. Tyler's voice was trembling with rage. "I can't believe you would do this to me. Right before our engagement party, how am I supposed to pay for anything? You've humiliated me in front of Allison and her family. This is unforgivable." There was no mention of understanding why I might have taken such a drastic step, no reflection on his own behavior, just entitlement and anger. I recorded a calm voicemail in response. "Tyler, I love you too much to watch you self-destruct. The trust fund has conditions that your father established for good reasons. When you're ready to talk calmly about creating a sustainable financial plan and returning to employment, I'm here. The money isn't gone, it's just paused until you demonstrate the responsibility your father wanted you to develop." Minutes later, my phone rang again. This time, it was Allison. "Bobbie, this is completely inappropriate," she began without preamble. "Tyler and I have commitments deposits placed for the wedding. Do you have any idea how this makes us look to my parents?" "Hello, Allison. I understand this is difficult, but Tyler's trust fund was never intended to fund an extravagant lifestyle without any income to support it. The conditions were established by his father." "Well, his father isn't here, is he?" Her tone was dismissive. "Times have changed. Tyler is developing important connections through our social circle. That's how business works now." "Real business involves actual work and income, not just connections," I countered. "If Tyler is serious about entrepreneurship, he should be able to present a business plan and show progress toward profitability." "You're just jealous," Allison said, her voice turning cold. "You can't stand that Tyler has found someone special and is moving on with his life. This controlling behavior is exactly why he wanted distance from you." The conversation deteriorated from their ending with Allison threatening that I would never see Tyler again or be welcome at their wedding. After hanging up, I called Martha for moral support. Her reassurance strengthened my resolve despite the gut-wrenching pain of the situation. That evening, several of Tyler's friends who still lived in Connecticut messaged me clearly, having heard his version of events. Some were judgmental, others concerned. I responded to each with a simple message: "This is a private family matter, but thank you for your concern for Tyler." By nightfall, I was emotionally exhausted, but convinced I had made the necessary choice. Before going to bed, I texted Tyler one last time, "I am doing this because I love you. When you're ready to talk, really talk, I'll be here. Your father wanted more for you than this, and so do I." There was no response. I went to bed expecting a difficult night, but surprisingly fell into a deep sleep, perhaps from the relief of finally taking action after months of worry. The next morning, just after 7, the aggressive pounding on my front door began. The thunderous knocking jolted me from sleep. For a moment, I was disoriented, my heart racing at the unexpected noise. Then, reality rushed back. I knew exactly who would be standing on my porch at this early hour. I pulled on a robe over my pajamas and hurried downstairs. Through the side window, I could see Tyler pacing on the porch, his face contorted with anger. A sleek sports car I had never seen before sat in my driveway with Allison visible in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone with an impatient expression. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. Tyler immediately launched into an angry tirade. "How could you do this to me? Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? The caterer called yesterday because my card was declined." Declined. Mom, Allison's parents had to step in. They think I'm some kind of financial disaster now. He continued, raging, his face flushed, gesturing wildly, with hands that once had been small enough to fit entirely in my palm. I let him vent without interruption, noticing the designer watch on his wrist, the expensive haircut, the custom suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. When his initial fury seemed to exhaust itself, I spoke calmly. "Would you like to come inside so we can talk about this properly? There's nothing to talk about. You need to call the bank right now and unfreeze my money. This is financial abuse, you know that?" From the car. Allison honked twice, clearly signaling her impatience. "Tyler, I understand you're upset, but shouting on my front porch won't solve anything. Please come inside. Allison can wait a few minutes." His jaw clenched, but after a moment of internal struggle, he gave a curt nod. "Fine, but this better be quick." As he brushed past me into the house, I caught the unfamiliar scent of expensive cologne, nothing like the simple soap and shampoo smell I associated with my son. Another small change that somehow symbolized how far he had drifted from the values James and I had tried to instill. We sat in the living room surrounded by family photos spanning decades. Tyler pointedly avoided looking at them, instead fixing his gaze on me with barely contained fury. "I want my access restored today. This is my money, not yours." "It's not that simple, Tyler. The trust has conditions that your father established. I'm the co-trustee responsible for ensuring those conditions are met. Dad has been gone for 18 years. He couldn't possibly have understood what life is like now, what it takes to establish yourself in today's world." I leaned forward, trying to bridge the emotional gulf between us. "Tell me about this new business venture of yours. What exactly are you doing since you left the marketing firm?" Tyler shifted uncomfortably. "I'm developing contacts, exploring opportunities with some tech startups. Allison's father is connecting me with investors." "And what's your actual role in these startups? What do you contribute?" "Consulting, strategic planning." His answers remained vague. "Have you earned any income from this work in the 3 months since you left your job?" His expression darkened. "It's about building for the future. These relationships will pay off eventually." "So that's a no." I sighed, then reached for a folder I had prepared the previous night. "Tyler, I've been monitoring the trust fund activity, as is my responsibility as trustee. In the past 6 months, you've spent over 300,000 Ds. That's 10 years of planned distributions at the rate your father intended." I slid copies of credit card statements and bank withdrawals across the coffee table. Designer clothes, first-class flights, a luxury apartment, Michelin star restaurants several times a week, a sports car lease, and now apparently an engagement ring that would have paid for a modest house in most parts of the country. Tyler glanced at the papers but made no move to examine them closely. "So what I have access to the money now. The lifestyle helps me make the right connections." "The lifestyle is unsustainable, Tyler. At this rate, the trust fund will be depleted before you're 30. Is that what you want? To burn through everything your father worked for?" "You don't understand how the world works now. These expenditures are investments in my future. What I understand is that you have no income, no concrete business plan, and spending habits that would bankrupt most millionaires in a few years. That's exactly the kind of irresponsible behavior the trust was designed to prevent." Our argument escalated, with Tyler becoming increasingly defensive about his choices. He accused me of being controlling, old-fashioned, and unable to see his vision. I countered with specific examples of his financial recklessness, pointing out that even wealthy, successful entrepreneurs don't live beyond their means. The conversation was going nowhere when the front door suddenly opened without a knock. Allison strode in, her expression a mixture of annoyance and disdain. "This is taking forever, Tyler. My parents are expecting us for brunch in an hour." She turned to me with a coldly polite smile that never reached her eyes. "Bobbie, I understand you're concerned, but you need to trust that Tyler and I know what we're doing. Our wedding is going to be the social event of the season, and these funding issues are creating unnecessary stress. Her casual mention of funding issues, as though my son's financial future was merely an inconvenient detail in their wedding plans, ignited something in me. Allison, with all due respect, this conversation is between Tyler and me. It concerns a family trust with specific conditions that have nothing to do with social events or wedding plans. She laughed lightly. Everything Tyler does concerns me now. We're a package deal. Tyler seemed uncomfortably caught between us, his earlier anger now tinged with uncertainty as he watched our exchange. I turned back to my son. Tyler, I have one question for you. If Allison knew today that there would never be another dollar from the trust fund, would she still be planning this extravagant wedding with you? That's completely inappropriate, Allison interjected before Tyler could answer. Our relationship has nothing to do with money. Then it shouldn't be a problem to scale back the wedding plans, move to a more affordable apartment, and live within the means of whatever this business venture actually produces, should it? The flash of alarm in Allison's eyes told me everything I needed to know. Tyler noticed it too. For the first time since he had arrived, I saw a crack in his defensive armor. A flicker of doubt crossed his face as he looked between Allison and me. The trust fund is temporarily frozen. I continued, addressing them both. It can be unfrozen when Tyler demonstrates financial responsibility by securing legitimate income and creating a sustainable budget plan. Those were your father's wishes, Tyler, and as trustee, I'm obligated to honor them. This is ridiculous, Allison snapped. Tyler, tell your mother we can't possibly wait for some arbitrary conditions to be met. The venue requires the next payment by Friday. Tyler looked at her with new awareness. We could postpone some of the more expensive elements. Maybe consider a smaller venue. Allison's expression shifted from disbelief to cold anger. Smaller venue? After I've already told everyone about the Palmer estate, my parents would be humiliated. It's just that until we sort this out with the trust fund, Tyler began. Sort it out. Your mother is clearly doing this out of spite. Are you actually considering giving in to her manipulation? Their argument quickly escalated, revealing cracks in their relationship. I hadn't realized existed. Allison's focus on appearances and her family's expectations became increasingly evident, while Tyler seemed to be processing, perhaps for the first time, the financial reality of his situation. Maybe we should take a step back and reassess, Tyler suggested, his voice uncertain. Take a step back. Allison's voice rose sharply. Do you know how many strings my father pulled to get us that venue? How many people are already planning to attend? This is about our future, Tyler. Exactly, he countered, finding some backbone I hadn't seen in months. Our future, which needs to be built on something more substantial than just spending. Allison stared at him in disbelief, then grabbed her purse from where she'd set it on my entryway table. I can't believe you're choosing her side over mine. Call me when you've sorted out your priorities. She stormed out the front door, slamming behind her. Moments later, we heard the sports car engine roar to life and tires squeal as she pulled away. In the sudden silence, Tyler sank onto the sofa, all his earlier bravado evaporated. He looked younger, suddenly vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen since he was a teenager. She's going to end our engagement, isn't she? His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. I sat beside him, careful to maintain some distance. I don't know, Tyler, but if she does, it might tell you something important about the foundation your relationship was built on. He stared at his hands for a long moment, then looked up at me with eyes that were finally, truly seeing. I think I'm in trouble, Mom. Real trouble. For the first time in over a year, we had an honest conversation. The tension in the air had dissipated, replaced by a heavy silence as Tyler remained on the sofa, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I moved to the kitchen, giving him space while I prepared coffee, a ritual that had comforted us through difficult conversations in the past. When I returned with 2 steaming mugs, Tyler accepted his with a small nod of thanks. What happens now? He asked, finally, his voice hoarse. That depends on you, I replied gently. The trust fund freeze isn't punishment, Tyler. It's a pause, a chance to reassess before more damage is done. Tyler stared into his coffee. I really messed up, didn't I? We all make mistakes. The question is what we learn from them. He took a sip, then set the mug down carefully. Allison won't call back. Maybe, maybe not, but that's not what we need to focus on right now. Tyler's phone buzzed on the coffee table. He glanced at it, his expression falling further. She's canceled the engagement dinner. Told everyone it's postponed due to unforeseen circumstances. He put the phone face down. That's Allison speak for it's over. Rather than offering empty consolation, I steered the conversation toward practical matters. When did you last pay rent on your apartment? The question seemed to surprise him. Last month, I think. It's due again in 3 days. And with the accounts frozen, realization dawned on his face. I can't pay it. You could stay here while you figure things out. I offered, careful to keep my tone neutral, not wanting to sound eager or pushy. The guest room is always ready. Tyler was quiet for a long moment. I'd need to get my things from New York. We could drive down tomorrow. Another period of silence, then a small nod. Okay. That evening, Tyler slept in his childhood bedroom for the first time in years. I heard him moving around late into the night, probably examining the remnants of his earlier life that still decorated the walls, sports trophies, academic awards, photographs from happier times. In the morning, we drove to New York, mostly in silence. The luxury apartment building felt cold and impersonal as we packed Tyler's belongings. I was struck by how few meaningful items he had accumulated. Expensive clothes filled the closets, the latest electronics cluttered surfaces, but there were no books, no photographs, nothing that spoke to connections or interests beyond consumption. As we were loading the last boxes into my SUV, the building manager approached, informing Tyler that without the next rent payment, he would need to vacate officially by the end of the week. The man's tone changed noticeably when he realized I was Tyler's mother, becoming almost apologetic as he explained the building's strict payment policies. On the drive back to Connecticut, Tyler finally opened up. I wanted to impress them, he admitted, staring out the passenger window. Allison's friends, her family, they all come from money, old money, the kind that never worries about bills or budgets. And you thought spending lavishly would make you one of them? I guess I did, he sighed. But they always knew somehow that I wasn't really one of them. There were comments, little jokes about my nouveau riche status. Is that why you kept pushing for more money from the trust? Tyler nodded slowly. Each time I got close to their world, the goalposts moved. A better apartment, the right vacation spots, the perfect engagement ring. I kept thinking if I just had a little more, I'd finally belong. I thought about James, how he had built his success methodically without ever trying to impress anyone. Your father started with nothing, you know. His parents could barely afford to send him to college. Everything he achieved, he earned through discipline and smart choices. I know, Tyler said softly. I just forgot for a while. Back at home, we established a new routine. Tyler took the guest room rather than his old bedroom, a small but significant choice that acknowledged he wasn't reverting to childhood but starting a new chapter. I gave him space while remaining available, a delicate balance I hadn't always achieved when he was growing up. 3 days after moving back, Tyler received the formal letter from the bank outlining the conditions for unfreezing the trust. Together, we reviewed them, securing employment or establishing legitimate self-employment income, completing a financial literacy course, creating a sustainable budget plan, and demonstrating responsible financial behavior for a minimum of 6 months. It seems overwhelming, he admitted, setting the letter down. One step at a time, I suggested. What do you actually want to do professionally? Not what impresses others or makes the most money fastest, but what would engage you? Tyler thought for a long time. I was good at my marketing job, he said finally. I left because it seemed too slow, too ordinary compared to Allison's world, but I enjoyed the creative aspects working with clients to shape their message. That's a start. The next morning, I found Tyler at the dining room table, laptop open, browsing job listings. When I offered to make calls to connections who might help, he declined gently. I need to do this myself, Mom. No shortcuts this time. I respected his decision, though it wasn't easy watching him face rejection after rejection as he tried to explain his employment gap. After 3 weeks of searching, he secured an interview with a small local marketing firm. The position paid significantly less than his previous job, but it offered growth potential and was within commuting distance. The day of the interview, Tyler appeared in the kitchen wearing a conservative suit I hadn't seen before. When I commented on it, he explained sheepishly that he had returned several designer items to buy this one practical outfit. "First step toward better decisions," he said with a small smile. He got the job. The starting salary was modest, barely enough to cover basic expenses, but Tyler seemed genuinely pleased to have earned the position on his own merits. The owner had been impressed by his portfolio and his honesty about wanting a fresh start. With employment secured, we turned to the next requirement: financial education. Tyler enrolled in an online course recommended by Alan, our family attorney. Twice a week, he sat at the dining room table with notebooks and spreadsheets, learning concepts that James would have taught him had he lived longer. One evening, about 2 months after moving home, Tyler asked if I still had his father's letter. When I retrieved it, he read it alone in the garden, returning with reddened eyes, but a new determination. "He would be disappointed in how I've handled things," Tyler said simply. "I want to make different choices going forward." We began meeting with a financial advisor who helped Tyler create a realistic budget based on his current income. The process was humbling for him, especially calculating how long it would take to repay the credit card debt he had accumulated. But with each session, I saw him growing more confident in his understanding and more committed to building a sustainable future. 4 months into this new arrangement, Tyler received a text from Allison. She suggested meeting for coffee, hinting that perhaps they had acted hastily in ending their engagement. Tyler showed me the message, his expression troubled. "What do you think I should do?" "What do you want to do?" I countered. He thought for a moment. The Tyler from 6 months ago would have rushed back to her. But now, I'm not sure we ever really knew each other. I think she loved the lifestyle more than she loved me. That sounds like clarity to me. Tyler declined the coffee invitation politely, but firmly. Instead, he began spending more time with old friends he had neglected during his New York phase, reconnecting with people who had known him before the trust fund became his identity. At the 6-month mark, Tyler had met all the conditions for partial unfreezing of the trust. The bank restored limited access with monthly distributions that supplemented his income without enabling excessive spending. The arrangement worked well, giving him financial breathing room while maintaining the structure he had come to appreciate. Around this time, Tyler approached me with a business proposal. He had identified a niche in digital marketing services for local medical practices, drawing on my connections in the healthcare community and his marketing expertise. The plan was modest but solid, requiring minimal startup capital and building gradually through referrals. I read his proposal, carefully impressed by the research and realistic projections. "This looks promising, Tyler. What do you need from me?" "Just your blessing and maybe introductions to some of your colleagues who might become clients. I can handle the rest." With my support, Tyler launched his small business as a side venture while maintaining his day job. He worked evenings and weekends, gradually building a client base. 6 months later, he had enough steady business to consider working for himself full-time. The trust fund review at the 1-year mark went smoothly. Tyler had demonstrated consistent responsibility, living within his means, saving regularly, and growing his business organically. The bank agreed to increase his monthly distributions and gave preliminary approval for a larger disbursement to properly establish his company once he reached the 18-month milestone. Around this time, Tyler met Natalie, a pediatric nurse who worked with children with special needs. Unlike Allison, she was unimpressed by displays of wealth and more interested in Tyler's character and ambitions. Their relationship developed slowly based on genuine connection rather than social positioning. When Tyler eventually told her about his financial history and the trust fund freeze, Natalie's response was refreshingly direct. "Sounds like your mom made a tough choice that ultimately helped you. That's what good parents do." On the anniversary of our confrontation, Tyler and I sat in the garden enjoying the early summer evening. He had moved into his own apartment 3 months earlier, a modest but comfortable place he could afford on his combined business income and appropriate trust distributions. "I was so angry with you that morning," he reflected. "I thought you were trying to control me to punish me. And now I understand it was the opposite. Letting me continue on that path would have been easier for you in the short term. Stepping in took courage." I smiled, thinking of James and how proud he would be of the man our son had become. Sometimes the hardest part of loving someone is being willing to disappoint them temporarily for their long-term well-being. Tyler nodded thoughtfully. I think about that a lot, especially with my clients. The easy path is giving people what they want. The valuable path is giving them what they need, even when they resist initially. As the sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, I felt a deep sense of peace. The journey had been painful, filled with difficult moments and hard truths. But we had emerged stronger, our relationship transformed into something more authentic than before. Tyler had found his own path, one built on solid values rather than appearances. The trust fund, that once threatened to corrupt him, now served its intended purpose, providing support without replacing personal achievement. James would have been satisfied with how things had unfolded, difficult though the process had been. As parents, our deepest responsibility isn't to make our children's lives easy or pain-free. It's to help them develop the strength and wisdom to navigate life's challenges with integrity. Sometimes that means making ourselves the villain in their story, at least temporarily. But when the story continues, those apparent acts of cruelty are revealed as the most profound expressions of love. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision for someone you love, knowing they might resent you for it? I would love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest choices are the ones that matter most. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you for listening, and remember that true parental love sometimes means having the courage to disappoint.